Hey everyone. So
Hello.
let me see. So Scarbeck is out, Henry's out, Graham's hopefully asleep. And who else? I'm not sure if Robert's working today. It is actually a US holiday. So we shall see. Which, Myra, you may have a really quiet day.
All by myself.
Yeah, you could be. I mean, I don't think you're 100% alone. I think there are some people working today, but there are also quite a few out. So
what's the occasion today? Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Go. Okay, so sorry, I've got my tabs all kinds of a mess. So let's kick off MTTP. So who would like to give us a little highlights on MTTP?
I'm never sure what we are supposed to talk about in this update.
I think as if there's anything you feel like the rest of the team needs to be aware of. So for example, it could be that you're repeatedly hitting upon a problem that's hitting MTTP, or we have a gap in the process that's meaning MTTP is higher, or you have a great idea for how we could like slash it in half if we change something, and this is kind of a proposal. So really just anything that you feel like you need support from the rest of the team in order to get MTTP like down to 12 hours.
Okay. I don't think I have anything. Myra, do you have anything?
I do. So I have been thinking about how to reduce the MTTP, and one of the things that I have been doing is to experiment with auto-deploy branches, the ones that are created in America time zones. And I am creating now, I think for America, around 3 or 4 auto-deploy branches, which means that I am deploying packages of around 20 to 30 commits, smaller packages. And what I want is to deploy one after another. This really depends on my schedule and fits for my schedule. I don't know if it's going to fit for Roberts or Scarpet, but it's something that I am adjusting for it. And it has been fun. It has been working so far. So yeah, that is one thing that I am doing. And another one that I have been noticing is baking time, which is something that I sent a message on Friday. So we have Canary Q&A, which lasts around 20 minutes or something. Sometimes it lasts more, but after that we have baking time of an hour. And since I am aiming to deploy smaller packages, I wonder if we should at some point reduce baking time to not be 1 hour, but to be 30 minutes. And I know that one of the goals of the single pipeline is to actually execute Q&A, Canary, and baking time at the same time. But we still have some issues to build and to ship before we reach that. I'm not sure if we are going to be able to reach that by this year. So I was wondering if we could start by reducing baking time now without waiting for single pipeline. And please let me know if that is too aggressive, because sometimes I am way too ambitious.
So I think so. My kind of ideal would be the one I mentioned in Slack last week, which is it would be super for us to do the work to have a visual of what value baking time gives us. And then as we change it, we'd be able to assess, like, are we going too far or not? So one thing we've been asked to do, which we haven't prioritized, is add in a change failure rate measure. And that would be a way of tracking how it's like the counterbalance to going fast. So it's from the Dora metrics, and it's like, are you deploying too quickly for your kind of quality checks to catch these things, for example? So that's one thing we could do, and then use that to kind of get an acceptable risk level and tweak around that. The other one I was thinking it could be less work is more of a kind of retrospective analysis, because what I actually don't have any idea about right now is when we do find problems in baking time, like generally how long into baking time do we find them? Like if we always find them 5 minutes in, then sure, it probably doesn't matter if we do half an hour or an hour. But if we actually have found some fairly significant issues at like 45 minutes, then that changes it. But I have no data on that whatsoever right now.
So you mean tracking if we are in baking time when an incident arises, and if this, let's say, incident-inducing changes is included in the things that we deployed, or if it was already there, and
yeah,
maybe
I mean,
okay.
maybe not even as thorough as that. Like, I was literally thinking of just all the kind of recent incidents we've had that we found on Canary. At what point in Canary did we find them? Like, was it whilst we were deploying, whilst we were testing, or during the baking time?
I don't think any incident that I encountered was something that was baking in Canary. But of course, I've been doing this only 2 weeks.
I mean, it's possible for sure. I don't
possible.
know. Yeah, it's possible. So around timing on changes for this stuff, I did want to, this is what kind of led me to put my discussion point on 7A. I'll leave the numbers alone. 7A for this agenda. Because one thing I do want to also think about is timing. So for this one, like, we have a lot of pipeline changes coming. So I think let's not change too much at the same time. But it, like, at some, like, baking time is a super great lever for us. When deployment SLO needs to be tweaked, we know we have a thing that's entirely within our control that we can tweak on. So I don't know if you want to start an issue, Myra, to like think about how will we make this decision, or what sort of data we could gather, or whether you just want to maybe wait until a little bit further down the road to like decide this.
Yeah, for sure. I can open an issue.
Awesome. Okay, thanks a lot. Great. Thank you very much, everyone. So on the announcements, I've left them all as read only.
So,
Amy,
can we discuss one little second more about the failure change rate that you were mentioning before? Sure. So how is this supposed to be defined, let's say? Yeah.
That's why we haven't built it, haven't given it any thought at all. It was a request that we add one. So it's the only DORA metric we don't have represented at the moment. And it is the one that is the kind of counterbalance to moving fast. It's the kind of metric that says you're going too fast. So it has value. There are two ways we could measure it. And from sort of reading up, there's no great consensus about which one people generally use. It seems pretty split. I'll have to go back to the actual book to see which one they said. I think the official one is how many like issues get through to production as a result of your deployments, I believe, is the official failure rate, right? In which case it's a bit more of a quality thing, and it might be an interesting one to work with quality, because basically that's where we can flex, like, do we have enough tests or not? Are the two, like, you know, if we always have 100%, maybe we have too many tests, you know, this, you can flex that way.
So it's not about incident inducing changes, it's actually shipping new issues.
Well, this is kind of up to us to define. So I think that's the official version. Then there's a couple of other slants we could take that make it perhaps more interesting for us. One is we could have how many of our deployment pipelines fail, and that's a very delivery perspective on it.
So based on QA failure,
just on general failure, and you kind of can use it as a an indicator that we don't have enough other stuff in place, right? So you could have any kind of pipeline failure, could be a reason to investigate and make decisions around pipelines. The other one which we could do is on incidents. And in a way, incidents is interesting because those are the things that, as say, infrastructure, we really, there's a high cost of raising an incident and having to have people involved and investigating. So yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I think it depends what we want to use it for.
Yeah, I do agree. Now, the reason why I was asking is because in terms of how fast we move, we track at the level of our base unit is the merge request, because MTTP is merge request, right? So I was trying to figure out if the counterbalance to this is still merge request based on merge request, so that they can share the amount of changes, right? So we shipped 1,000 changes, but 2 of them were S1 inducing
Right,
S2.
yeah,
Maybe they
yeah.
can be just issues, not necessarily something that needs to be fixed in a patch release kind of definition, right? So something that is broken and is broken big enough to deserve a patch release. Maybe patch release is kind of, it really depends if we are past the 20-second, but kind of gives the idea. So something that someone will quickly fix, even if it's not inducing an incident. This is a very weird definition of it, but at least we are counting based on the same amount of stuff. Because if we move from merge requests shipped per day to number of packages that we had to roll back, these are kind of two very different numbers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I'll add in the issue, but yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. So one thing kind of I haven't prioritized this because at the moment I can't, it seems like a reasonable amount of work for not giving us too much decision making. I think what we're working on right now, day-to-day, is more valuable, but that's kind of why I think like that's the obvious one for making a decision around baking time and other pipeline, sort of like compressing the pipeline decisions. But if there's an easier way to also kind of get an assessment of that, that would also maybe be interesting.
Yeah, maybe there are better low-hanging fruits, like just tracking failed deployment pipeline. We don't track at the moment. We have the status label, but we only send successful deployment. So it just
exactly.
It's a data point that we can then utilize for doing something.
Yeah. Oh, maybe there's even a metric we could whack on the end of baking time that tracks some of this for us. I haven't given it very much thought, but yeah. Cool. Okay, thank you for that. Like, feel free, there's the issues on there if you want to take discussion there. Like I say, I'm starting from kind of zero on this stuff. It was just, we were requested to add one. It will be useful at some point, I'm sure. What I wanted to highlight, so kind of very much related to this, is the fact that there is an awful lot of discussions going on, and hopefully a decision soon about reordering the pipeline. So this is very relevant to bringing in other changes, but it will also affect all of us and future work. So a lot of maybe the single pipeline things and possibly the post-deployment migration work that you've been thinking through, Myra, like this is quite likely to be built on top of some of these changes. So I just wanted to highlight kind of what's going on here and some of the threads so that you could all kind of read through and get up to speed on these things. What we'll do once we have a agreed solution, we can actually walk through in depth, but just so you can see kind of what's happening here. So I recommend reading through EPIC 6401. It has all the context behind the staging changes that are coming in. And that was the kind of initial step before the pipeline changes. So we already have 2 new environments. You'll already be seeing staging Canary. You will soon start seeing staging ref that will be deployed to shortly. And you can see on the plan that it's going to be sitting in parallel. So initially you'll see the deployment tasks going through, and then later you'll see that they'll start to run tests, and this will start to become a blocking environment as well. So we have these kind of parallel stagings. Now there is kind of a lot of discussion on EPIC 6401, but the gist of the idea is that we eventually get to a stage where staging environments are pretty flexible. They can be stood up, torn down, have specialized data setups and things like that if they need to. And staging ref is going to be used initially as a kind of test bed. So quality or improving the test data available. It will be set up so admin changes can be tested, and there's a whole new test suite being built that will run on there. So it's kind of a bit of a testing ground environment for now. In the future, we'll work out like how does it fit around staging Canary and staging. So that's all going on. I've linked on the EPIC that's tracking the infra tasks. That's 559 if you want to see what's happening there. But then, so that was all going smoothly. And then Alessio quite rightly pointed out that this still doesn't actually fix all the problems. So there's the comment that gives that. So basically the problem is we don't deploy every package. We don't guarantee every package will go through to production. So we still don't, by having a staging canary and staging are not guaranteed to match production canary and production. So as a result, we've been working through scenarios to try and solve this problem. So all of those things are in issue 2004. And they are not super easy to wrap your head around. So apologies in advance. We are looking so far like option 4 is probably the preferred option, which we believe solves all of the scenarios. It actually also will help MTTP. So that's good as well. But what so we have a meeting tomorrow, Leslie and I are just meeting with quality to talk through and just check they're happy with this. But what well, I'll let you go and have a look through. Like, so my main point really was to spend some time, have a look through here, be aware of like the different options that have been considered, and have a think if you see any problems on those, if you have any other ideas, or you can see any concerns, then that would be useful. And once we have like insight from like input from quality, we can see what next steps are. But Ruben, do you want to verbalize your point?
I was just wondering if we do that, then people hitting staging can also hit staging main rather than staging canary. So for example, even if we send 90% traffic to canary, 10% of people will still hit staging main. So if their changes are only deployed to canary and not to staging main, then they'll need to be aware of this fact. And also anyone like testing stuff by logging into staging Rails console, they'll also need to be aware that their changes are not on staging main, actually. They're only on staging canary.
Yeah, I can try to answer this. So first point, basically you will, as a developer, you will have the cookie set. So if you have the cookie, like in production, you can just go always to production canary. So this is the first, the first problem. The second one is true. I mean, let me do a step back and explain why we proposed this, because maybe so there are some reasons. We talk about the problems, but there are some more deep whys that we didn't mention in the thing. So the purpose of a canary environment, regardless of being, so let's use the proper terms for once. The purpose of a canary stage within an environment is to identify problems, right? So when we are talking about production canary, we want to reduce the blast radius of new changes. So we have a small set of servers which are running the canary stage, so that if something goes badly wrong, we can gather signals out of it, but we want those signals to be, say, they will not induce a general outage on the system. So this is why we have production canary right now. But if you think the same situation in canary environment, sorry, I make confusion. In staging environment, you want to use the opposite analogy, because you want to amplify errors as soon as possible. So in that case, staging canary has the purpose of amplifying errors. And so most of the traffic should go there, because the sooner it fails, the sooner we can stop it and start fixing the thing. So that's the reason behind this. And having most of the traffic going to the staging canary environment allows us to do production main and staging main deployed together. Because at that point, we don't care. It's just a tiny fraction of traffic that is there only for the purpose of testing the QA multiversion test. So as a developer, there will be a transition period, obviously, because this thing changed. But basically, what you are going to do, what you're going here is that canary. So canary staging for you is canary. So the other machine is just there for a specialized QI type of test, which is why AMEE in option 3 was proposing to rename that thing instead of so just using canary for canary and using canary multitest, blah blah blah. The point is that then it's harder to wrap your head around, because then you have this thing which has a specialized name, and so we decided to keep things together, right? So with the same order, you do canary first, because canary allows you to test new changes. And then in one case, you amplify the blasting radius. In production's case, you take the blasting radius as more as possible. So that's the thing. Specific to the problem of connecting to your SSH machine, even something easier like when you log into the SSH console, you just write you the information about the environment. If you remember, I just tell you Postgres version and things like that. If this is what we need, we can just put something there. They just tell you, you know what, you are probably in the wrong stage. Very prominent. So when you SSH, just what is going on here, right? So it would be a matter of time, and then eventually we will all learn how to operate this. But yeah, I agree. This is a drawback.
Yeah, I guess since we have basically the same situation in production, developers will be able to sort of understand the situation faster.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame we have to change everyone's workflow, but I think it is one of those things that like in 6 months' time or a year's time, it will be logically more sensible. So we kind of avoid some process tech debt by doing the upfront pain. But
yeah. There's also another point that we would like to gain as a delivery team out of this, which is moving to, let's say, a new way of interacting with pipeline failures, which is checking metrics based on multi-versions compatibility, based just on error rates. So right now, we can't really do this because when we deploy staging, all the staging environment is rolled to the new version. So we check the metrics. They are part of our rollout check, but basically we never experience a high failure rate because maybe we merge something that is breaking sidekick queue processing. Because maybe we are enqueuing stuff with the wrong keys, and then we have an error rate on sidekick. But if we will have these two versions running together, then we can try to basically consider QA as a signal. We have a signal which is QA smoke test, another signal which is QA multi-version test, and then we have another signal which is how well is behaving the environment in terms of metrics on overall health of the system, which I think may help us quite more than what that single test can do, right? Because the QA test may spot some type of error, but others are, say, too spread across the application. It's really hard to write tests for every single use case. So as a team, probably if we start thinking more about signals that we receive from the application in terms of, is it behaving or are we having more errors? Because if we have more errors, something is wrong. We can later figure out what is wrong, but there's a clear signal. If we are having a spike in errors in canary, in staging, it's very likely that we will have the same spike of error in production amplified by the number of traffic.
Awesome. I'm going to move along because we've only got a few minutes left, but please keep asking questions about this stuff. We'll definitely be talking about this more, like once we've decided on an option, we can work out next steps for making the changes and then the kind of future iterations of adding traffic and bringing in these extra like metrics and things. So 7B, Alessio, do you want to jump start?
Yeah, so today I was having this chat with Andrew and I realized how much I don't like speaking about SLO in general because of it's just a lot of shared vocabulary that I kind of grasp what we're talking about, but I really don't understand, right? So that's the basic point. And he was making the same point, right? That he was having troubles having conversation around the organization, the company, because of, yeah, we refer about error budgets, and in certain area of the company, we think error budgets like something specific that we are working on for handling failures, while they have a general definition that is in the realms of metrics and things like that. So I decided to give it a try with the SLO book that I linked there to try to figure out if we can get to a shared understanding of these things. I do believe these things are really important, especially for us. I mean, we are neighbors of scalability team, and these things are basically what they are working on. And now we are all backend engineers here, but I'm quite sure that our SRE mate in the team knows these things better than us. But yeah, I would love if we could just be better at this. Another thing that I was struggling with is this. I'll be short here because we're running out of time. Basically, we are defining the compliance dashboard, right? And we were talking about we want to run X number of rollback per period of time. So it's an absolute reference. So we want to do this over this period of time. This is really hard to model as an SLO because they are designed to be to operate on percentage. So you can, maybe they would not be strictly an SLO or an SLI, or you can think about something in reverse, like I want to have, let's say, we were doing the math this morning. I want to have 2% of rollback deployment in staging every month, which at the current rate of deployment is roughly 3 deployments a month.
One thing I'd like to factor into this, which probably takes the issue, so I do want to use the last couple of minutes on point 9, is one thing, let's factor into the SLO stuff for release management, for rollbacks, is that number will change. So as we get more comfortable, or as we start automating these, it won't be necessarily 3, it may be 5 or 10. So I believe that's quite difficult to change on an SLO because your percentage tracking is different. So we might want to review that. But let's take this to the issue. I will put 7C on Slack. I'm just going to stop the recording and just use the last couple of minutes to run through point 9.